Welcome to the Mad About Wayne podcast from the Wayne County Historical Society in Wayne County, Georgia. We hope this time together is informative, educational, and maybe even a little entertaining. Mad About Wayne is brought to you by ProSonics Audio Engineering. Now, let's get into today's Mad About Wayne podcast.
Hi, my name is John Benner. I'm the president of the Wayne County Historical Society, and I'd like to introduce our panel tonight. I have Miss Janet Roll to my left and Miss Melba Murphy beside her. Welcome, guys.
Glad to be here.
I guess, we need to find out, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this, with the Wayne County Historical Society. Myself, I guess, was back when one of my teachers or whatever, Miss Bacon, when she'd ask you in class, who's your grandfather? And then she would start all the way back down and name all of your people and then the other people beside you. So I had that. And then I had a neighbor that he was my Google before Google was Dr. Lanier Harrell. So I had him. So that's how I got involved with the Wayne County Historical Society.
I got involved through my mother, who was considered to be the Wayne County historian of her day, and I actually picked her up. There were her, Mama, and two of her friends that could not drive after dark, and so I would pick up Mama, and I would pick up Mildred Wedenkamp, and I would pick up Margaret Jordan, and I drove them. Malvia Tootle.
Okay.
My mama's name is Malvia Tootle, and I picked up Margaret Jordan, and she was, before Mama, she was the Wayne County historian and a published author of a collection of Wayne County history, and I always loved history because Miss Marianne Rich, when I was in high school, and Miss Melba Murphy to my left.
I was fixing to ask.
But that's how I got involved with it. And then I also was involved with the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation Heritage Education program when I was in the classroom. And that's where I learned a whole lot more about Wayne County. Melba Lou?
Okay. Do I have 45 minutes or what? Okay. I was a history teacher, American history, for 42 years. And so the question is, I got in the Historical Society. The question is, how did I get into history? My daddy was born in Gardai, Georgia. And about when I was young, say 7, 8, or 9, he had two spinster sisters who lived down at the house at the homestead, and that house had been built in 1900. And so Daddy and his cousins would take turns going to look after Aunt Claude and Aunt Noon. And I saw history, that it wasn't a, two-dimensional thing, just a story somebody was reading out of a book. People lived this. I saw the outhouse, and I saw the pump, and I saw where so-and-so, was buried. And that really impressed me. And so ever since then, I hate to sound, but, who was it, Socrates, that when he died, he said, I want to die knowing one more thing. And that's kind of how I feel about history. There's still much to learn.
A whole lot to learn.
You've had the longest with the Wayne County Historical Society, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah. And so why don't you tell us how it got started? And
it got started in 1986 through the efforts of Stanton Lee. He was a charter member. He was the one who organized it. And my mother was the treasurer for umpteen years until she couldn't be the treasurer anymore. And they started out meeting on Sunday afternoons, and it went to Thursday, the second Thursday of the month, because people wanted to eat. And so we would meet at Sybil's. We met at Sybil's forever, probably 20-something years that we met at Sybil's. But it was primarily the efforts of Stanton Lee that got the Wayne County Historical Society started. And he was a way back person. He was connected to the Whaleys and the Clerys. And Willis Cleary was the first mayor and paid for the city of Jessup to be surveyed. And his wife, or Stanton, Willis Cleary's wife, but she was also Osgood Andrew Lee's wife. They were the founding family and married the Whaleys married into them and had a lot of property and helped get the city of Jessup started and make it what it is today. So that's about it. I think John's a newcomer. Your family's kind of got here later. My family we are actually first generation Wayne County. Our mother that is Darlington County, South Carolina. The Darlington County, Chesterfield County line went through her house, and she slept in Darlington and ate in Chesterfield. And they came to Georgia on the train, and my grandmother did not like Georgia, and she refused to be buried here. But my grandfather's buried, and my mother's family, and my mother's buried at Liberty Church, which is where a lot of the farming community was located in Wayne County. So I'm actually just first generation.
I was born in Wayne County, Detroit, Michigan, and moved to Wayne County, Jessup, Georgia when I was 5 years old. So I'm definitely from Wayne County.
Just the wrong one.
Yeah, doubled up.
So on that.
Is
But
it named after Matt Anthony Wayne also?
I don't know. I will have to research that for you. So I will find out to make sure.
Well, what I would add about joining a group, and I was just, the way I got involved in the group was Janet asked me to do a presentation on Gardai, and then why haven't I been here before then? And that's on me. But the thing here, there's another way to look at all this. What is the importance of local history, and what is the importance of maintaining it and publicizing it? If you look at, a family, what strengthens the family is the common bonds, the stories, the celebrations. And I think that's true about a community. For years now, our country has been a wealth of different kinds of people from different kinds of places. You could start with Georgia in the very beginning, and the Salters, who was that?
Salzburgers.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so all these different kinds of people, and what gave us continuity was that we were having common experiences, we were solving common problems. And so I think when you get down to a county, I mean, just like the train, we've the Historical Society, and I think this was Janet's idea, we now have train day. And so now we've reinvigorated the idea that Jessup is the city that trains built. And how many people knew that, Scriven had a depot, and Jessup had a depot, but we developed into a bigger town. Why was that? It was because of the intersection of two railroads rather than just one that was going through. And so when people know this, it's like hearing a new story about your great Aunt Bessie or something. You're tied into it, and you understand that we came from someplace, and we have many things in common.
And that's what it is. It's called maintaining a sense of place.
Yes.
And that's what it gives our kids. That's why it's so important to teach our children our heritage, because it gives them something to latch on to. Children that don't have a lot of experience with their families, they need something to hold on to socially and emotionally. And that's what history gives us. All history is local. It happened somewhere. It happened in McLean's living room and Appomattox. They burned Atlanta. That was somebody's house. Here we got the battle for Doctortown Railroad Trestle. That was the only Confederate victory, significant Confederate victory on Sherman's March to the Sea. There's always something that happened in history that happened to somebody. It wasn't just some random act out there in the universe. It was actually here. And so that gives children a sense of pride and a sense of self, and that's why history is important.
And you tie in, when I started researching about Gardai and getting really into it, and I started off with ancestry. Interestingly enough, my mother, who was from Tattnall County, was more interested in the Bennetts of Wayne County than, not that my daddy wasn't interested, but my mother was going to, she was kind of like Malvia. She was going to write it down. So when she started all this, and then I wanted to know how the Bennetts tied into Gardai in general. So I started looking at what was going on in Gardai. And it's that kind of way. And then how was Gardai? How was things that people did in Gardai? We had the Gardai schools. And then why did all of a sudden we go to the Jessup schools? And what is, the bee apiary, those kinds of things.
The honey house.
Yes.
They call it the honey house.
And, it's just a tying in. Everything that my family did contributed to Gardai, and things that Gardai did influenced my family. And then you can go from Gardai to Wayne, that same kind of parallel. So it can be fascinating.
What kept me going or whatever with it, whatever Janet, when she was you were principal or vice principal over at Arthur Williams Middle School, and my wife was teaching over there, and they built a whole village out back for history and my wife was a language arts teacher, but these kids got so involved and learned so much then, and they come up today and still tell us how much fun they had doing that. And I mean, we had a whole village out there, and the kids dressed up in the period. What period were we in at the point? Do you remember?
It was they had the Indian. Yes, it had the Native American Indian village component of it, and that was also important to the creation of what became Wayne County. Was the Native Americans that we had. We were the coastal influence. We had Oglethorpe at Fort Frederica in Savannah. We had Mary Musgrove, who was James Edward Oglethorpe's interpreter whenever he arrived in Savannah. He didn't just happen up on Savannah. They knew where they were going. People act like he just all of a sudden sailed up and said, "Oh, look, there's Yamacraw Bluff. I think I'll stop." And he didn't. He knew where he was going on the good ship Anne. But we had the Mary Musgrove influence. We had Chief Ellick influence. And so we were the border.
Who was Chief Ellick?
Chief Ellick was, he was a Creek Indian chief who was actually at the site of Williamsburg, which was a community that was established in 1792. But anyways, they were removed from that area by the Treaty of Fort Wilkinson. They moved upriver to the next highest bluff on the Omaha, which became Doctortown, and Alachua was the Creek word or the Muskogee word for doctor. So we have all that influence. We were important from the get-go as a geographical location.
And yeah, that's the other thing that's really interesting if you're studying geography, and it's about geographic determinism. That we had the Altamaha River. And
that sounds like something that you need a shot for.
Well,
geographical determinism.
Well, I mean,
okay.
Look at the sawmill that we had. Yeah. We had that there because of the river.
Yes.
And then the bridge, the Doctortown, and the reason that Sherman wanted to take that, had to do with he wanted to cut off how we had adapted to transport between southern part of the state and Savannah. So what your element that you have in the geographic elements that you have and where you live can, have a lot to do with how you develop. And we certainly had an advantage with the river.
We were very important because of we were the in-between, the halfway point, sort of, for colonial Georgia from coming up from the coast. And the river was the key component. The Omaha was the key. It was the interstate highway system of its day. And they were going up into the middle of Georgia. You still went up the Omaha to the Oconee or the Ocmulgee. When you were going downriver, you had to come by Doctortown and go on down to Darien. And so the river was key. It was key to the defense of the state or the colony of Georgia. And it was key for the economy, moving goods and services upriver, downriver, as the state grew and expanded.
Well, if we go to, what have been our most important historical events or places, why don't you summarize the Doctortown? I actually looked up something today that said Doctortown was a ghost town.
It is it might have a ghost. Who knows? I know, but that the National Weather Service has it as a locator. It always cracks me up when they issue the weather warnings and they say there's a thunderstorm at Doctortown. I thought, okie dokie. But it is the place names in Georgia history. It is important as a place name in Georgia history. It was a Native American settlement with Chief Ellick, and as the Indians had to move upriver, and eventually in the removal of the Creeks and the Cherokees, they would check out during that time at Fort James, which was all the way up river above Gleason, Copeland, Upper County Landing. But Doctortown was also key in the railroad world. The first trestle was built across the river in 1857 by the Atlantic and Gulf Railroad, the Scriven family of Savannah, and it was a wood structure. And I think that we need to give a stand-up salute to the engineers of the 1850s who could build a wood bridge over the Omaha River. But that was it was a key economic center. It's 300 years of Wayne County history
How
in
many
that
people
one
lived
site.
there?
And its heyday about 1500, and that was when it was a sawmill community. And
And how do we get a sawmill there?
the sawmill was there because of the river and because of the lumber. And when the McCanns came in 1924, there was already a sawmill there and already a community at Doctortown. There was a school there. There was a post office there. It had its own little society in its heyday. School buses would later run there because they consolidated the schools. But Doctortown is probably the most significant historical site in the county. The second would be the Williamsburg, Sansevilla, Mount Venture area where Mary Musgrove had a trading post in 1740, 1742. That would be the second most significant historic site.
Well, what I read was the sawmill was our first economic venture. Significant economic
Other
venture.
than for farming, we didn't have a lot going on. We did not just poof grow. We had some growing pains and some slow settlement, but we were a land lottery county, and they gave away in 1803, May of 1803. The state did a land lottery, and they gave away more land than there was, so they had to pull the lottery back in and reissue it. And Henry W. Grady said that our area was not good for anything but cows and pine trees, and he was correct. The pine tree has carried us a long way, and cows are out there too. But that was the significant part. Was in December 1805 is what the county chose to be the creation date. And that's what we use for the centennial, and the bicentennial was the December 1805 date.
Well, one of the things that I read, and you can comment on it more than I can, it said that we had to encourage people to come down here by the land lottery because this was called Wiregrass, Georgia, meaning it wasn't considered very arable, that people wanted to go up near Macon where the land was better. So the lottery helped encourage people. Is that right?
That is correct. And that's why Henry Grady said it wasn't good for anything, and because it's got a lot of wetlands. It's low. It's below the fall line, so we had that rolling landscape of the ocean bottom, and it was not rich easily. You could plow it easier than you could plow in North Georgia, but you didn't necessarily grow. It didn't take long to wear it out when cotton was the main crop.
So we're founded by a lot of disappointed people.
Yes, and we continue the trend.
But like I said, going back to the river, whenever they would drag, all the logs would come down from around Macon and Hoggenville. They would make the rafts and come down. And going back to our school projects, we used to take the school kids down there. They'd have to read the book.
River Pilot.
River Pilot. They'd have to read River Pilot, and then we would take 100 eighth graders on the river in pontoon boats, 4 pontoon boats, and we'd do it all day long. And we had 4 stations set up all around, and this was another experiential educational moment for them that they really learned a lot. And a lot of them, to this day, whenever we still take them on the river, have never been on the river. So the logs would come down, and back in the 70s, I remember when they did a reenactment and brought a raft down the river, and it was it wasn't J.C. Landing because J.C. Landing wasn't built yet. So
that was in 1982, Project Raft. That was my first experience in the Wayne County school system. I had just come down here from the Athens area, and luckily enough, I had 7th graders at Scriven Elementary. And for some reason, the seventh graders did not take tests. You know, we were not as data crazy as we are now, but the rest of the school was testing, and I took my seventh graders to Project Raft.
Okay.
And that was through Georgia Southern College at the time, at Georgia Southern University, Dr. Delma Presley, who everybody in the historic preservation world owes Delma Presley a great big thank you for the work that was done with Project Raft. Raft was restoring Omaha folk traditions, and they went to Fort Stewart, and Fort Stewart gave them the trees. They came from the firing range, and they had all kind of shrapnel and all that kind of stuff in it. But they put it together. They launched at Lumber City, and they stopped at Baxley, they stopped in Jessup, and they stopped at Darien, of course, because that's where, if you still had your logs by the time you made it to Darien, you had to sell because there was nowhere else to go. But if they didn't get the price they wanted, the raft hands and at Doctortown, they would go on down to Darien. Yeah. And that's where we got Old River Road. The river roads were how they walked back home. They didn't have, they didn't waste money on a train ticket if there was a train at the time. Probably later on they could have, but they bought their supplies in Darien and bag of sugar, a bag of flour, and some peppermint candy sticks for their children, and they walked home on Old River Road.
My granddaddy, Lambert Bennett, who again was from Gardine, he did one of those rafting. He used to go up to Baxley, as I hear, and where the trees would be cut, and then they were lashed together, and he would ride it down, and then he had to, like you were saying, he had to find a way back home to start again. And Janet taught his class one summer that a lot of teachers took on local Wayne County history, and everybody has been wanting her to do that again. I'd take it again.
I bet you would.
Is that the reason you don't do it?
They don't have we don't have, the teachers don't have the freedom today that they had back when Melba and I were in the classroom. They have to go by the script and go have too many bosses and not enough help. That's my personal opinion, little editorial comment there. But it's like, John,
we got an opinion out of you before the time was over.
The experiential learning, that is exactly what we need more of, and that's what John's talking about. They learn more building that village than they would have ever learned from sitting in a desk in a math classroom with a 12-inch ruler doing 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. They actually had to measure to see how big things were going to be. So they applied
the shadows
their
of the trees. They had to do that.
That was one of the activities at Pig Farm Landing, was that how tall is a tree based on its shadow, and that was the math part of the.
Oh my gosh! I would have failed that.
And then at Doctortown, they had the history of Doctortown, and they had colonial games and games that the children would have played, and they did water testing at J.C. Landing. And J.C. is interesting with J.C. It's on US 84, Georgia 38, but it's not a natural landing like Pig Farm is, or like Upper County is.
What does that mean?
It's man-made.
It's dug out.
The JC's at work with the Army Corps of Engineers and Fort Stewart. And
what year?
Actually, 75, 76, somewhere along in there. If Kenny Bryant can tell you. But they actually used dynamite and blew out the bluff to put the landing in.
Yep.
And when the Omaha River Authority did the ribbon or the kickoff for the renovation project that's going on at JC, we had all the old JCs come out.
Yes.
To participate with that. And that's where we got that history from. But the JCs, Wayne County JCs, Jessup JCs?
Just JCs.
They got a lot done in this community.
That was the golden age.
Yeah, we need some more of that.
Well, you both take people like the leadership classes up and down the river. Where are some of the sites that you're teaching about?
Well, like I said, it was back in 2013, they'd asked us, or I'd been asking the chamber to redo their leadership program, and they finally what's the word I want to use? Let us do it. So we revamped it, Jody Ammons and I, and it was a 10-month program now. And one of the 1 month, each month gets a certain day or whatever, and Janet does a history day. And the thing we always tell them, it's hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. So on that, but that history day, and Janet is great on that day, and we go, and I'll let her start, because we start at Williamsburg, and we come all the way back, and we go all the way down, and it's just a great day. And it's only a fraction of the history, but it's people, that's one of the best classes when they do their evaluations of the 10-month program.
Well, so what are the places you stop on the river?
On the river. Usually we're going, we're like I said, we're going from JC, we're going down to Doctortown, from Doctortown back up to Pig Farm or Oglethorpe Landing, and then back. So we're still in
Stansville?
No, that's too far. The river's too long.
Okay.
And
we have 72 miles of Altamahaw as our border. It's a 137-mile river, and we're the heart of the Altamahaw. 72 miles is Wayne County's line, and you can't go. Once you leave JC, you don't have a place to stop. You can go into Paradise Park if you know how to get into Paradise Park. It's a private landing, and you have to know when to turn right. And there's no traffic signals out there. But it's right there by Rag Point.
Yeah.
Rag Point, and there are a lot of places like John lives at Bugs Bluff.
Bugs Bluff
Is below river. It's downriver.
Yes, downriver. That's correct.
Downriver, and there's a.
I thought you had misspoken.
I have been known to misspeak. Is that a word, misspeak? We're gonna have to look that one up. I sometimes I get my cardinal directions messed up too. But anyway, there are a lot. The place names on the river are either from the Native Americans or from the raft hands, and that's how they called the signals for where they were. I have a recording. Sometime we need to use it, Mark, on the of a raft hand doing the call whenever they would tie up their rafts at night.
Like the trains when
they would do a holler so that anybody else on the river would know that that's where they were and wouldn't crash into them. But and that night air and that cool air, it would carry, and you could hear it. It's really, really good. And that came from Project Raft, from Dr. Presley and his work with Project Raft. And so it's really like I said, he's Bugs Bluff, Bugs Up, Rag Point, Alligator Congress,
Dick Swift.
Y'all making this up.
And there's a book that I can't remember the name of, but he actually starts at Lumber City and comes down river to Darien and names all the sites along the way that the timber rafts would have gone by and called. There's an island when the river is low up near Upper County that's called Hannah's Island, and it belonged to Miss Mary Ann Anderson. But it's named for a raft hand's wife who insisted on going with her husband on the trip, and she fell off the raft and drowned, and she's supposed to haunt that area if you believe in haunts, and that's completely up to you whether you believe in it or not. And
I believe I won't test it.
I don't know where that island is. I just know about it because I was told about it. But she drowned, and then Rag Point, which is it's just above where Penn Holloway comes out into the big run of the river, right back up that way toward Long County, is Rag Point. That's where the raft hands, whenever they went by, they had to take off piece of their clothing and tie it on the tree to scare off the bad spirits. And if you didn't do that and something happened to your raft, it was your fault for not honoring Rag Point. So there's a lot of folklore that goes with the Altamahaw, a lot of folklore with Long County, Wayne County, and the counties that have are lucky enough to touch on the Altamahaw. Altamahaw is reportedly an Indian word. Supposedly, its real meaning is not known. There's some learned someone from South Carolina that says it was named after a minor chief in South Carolina, Chief Altamahaw, and I kind of feel like that minor chief was named after the river and not vice versa. I don't know why a minor chief in South Carolina would luck into being named, have a major river named, but it's supposed to be the Waitatama, which was a major Indian village at the confluence where the Oconee and the Ocmulgee come together to form the Altamahaw, and they actually collide.
It's right around Hazelhurst.
Yeah, up above between Hazelhurst and Lumber City. So it's really neat that they hit and come, but they make a T. But that Doctortown is one of the few places on the river that has its original Indian name.
Now, how many miles are in Wayne County?
72.
72.
I think. Y'all don't get out your measuring tapes now. But I believe that's always been told
If we
72.
were trying to encourage people to come out and join the Historical Society, what are examples of some programs that, you've really have been really influential? I know that one of the first ones I went to was a lady, and you'll have to help me with this, but it was a lady, and she and her family lived in the little house on the
Rose. That was
Ida Rose Howard.
Yes, and
Miss Mary.
and then I do remember from that, imagine me and my memory, but they were talking about the last time that they had raised the bridge was when they were building the Plant Hatch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the
And-
last time.
At Dr. Town. But you're talking about the other bridge was old wood one that Miss Howard and them used to open right there where it goes over right now by Rainier.
Yeah, the old road before whenever WPA, when Roosevelt and all the money that he poured into into local governments from WPA during the Depression, but that road where you go into Rainier and I think that I don't know for a fact because I've never been a Rainier employee, but when you turn off of the highway and go to the left to go around to the employee parking, that black asphalt looking road, that was the highway. And the bridge that they lived on, they actually lived in a little house on the bridge. And one of the Howard boys fell, and I don't remember which one,
Yeah.
but he fell out of the house. And but I don't know how she stood it. I don't know how she had her children. The Howards are still very clannish people. We have to get them in sometime to talk
Yes.
on a podcast because Ida Rose did a very good job. I think
She
she's
did.
the oldest
that was
of the children.
So what's
Oh.
other programs, for example, that have been enlightening? I mean, all of them are to some extent, and they enrich whatever you may even know.
The train, I think when we did train history and talked about the different train lines that came through, and like Scriven is not named for General Scriven from the Revolutionary War. It's named for James Proctor and John Bryan Scriven, who were from Savannah and established the Atlantic and Gulf Railroad. And then railroads kind of they regularly went bankrupt and got reorganized, and so they went from the Atlantic and Gulf to the Savannah, Florida, and Western, and they rolled on that way. But I think, and then we talked about the families that came here with the railroad, and the railroad was the first industrial type jobs that we had because everybody else was farmers, and then we had the Pascal Shirt Company come. Sea Island, they made Sea Island cotton shirts. But before that, you were a farmer or you worked on the railroad. And that's how we got started. And then we had the USS Benjamin Franklin when
That was a good one.
Virginia and
Yeah.
Bill, I had to come up with Bill's name. Virginia and Bill
Garland.
Garland. But Albritton, that was Albritton history.
Right.
I think that was a really good one. We've had a lot of good programs through the years. We had one on Fort Caroline because I don't think they're convinced that Fort Caroline is actually in Florida with the Timucuan Indians, but it may have been somewhere on the Altamahaw.
Yeah, that was a good
And we had, I remember that particular night, we had the people from Mount Pleasant there, Thomas Proudfoot, and we were watching the slides, the pictures of the presenter, and we were trying to figure out where he was, he thought that he knew where Fort Caroline was, and we were trying to look for locator sites so we could find out that's where it was also. But the Native American tribes, they morphed and joined up as the white man and the disease and annihilated their numbers and all. So you have a progression of different types of tribes that would have been here that actually got absorbed into each other because of the need for security. But I think that's a good one. I don't know if you have some good ones that you recall. Dr. Harrell.
Well, like I said, Dr. Harold talked where he was at. Like I said, we used to call him the mayor of Bugs Bluff, but he's on definitely, it was the Indian side because Miss Harold and all the pottery that they collected down there on that hill. I don't see as much on down where I am, but just couple hundred yards down the road, there was more of it. And my brother lives off a Shrine Club on Linden Bluff, and he gets a lot of pottery over there. So they're definitely Indians were on the left side, or the high side was the Indian side. So they were smarter and so on that. So
But they had to survive.
Well, one of the things again as a history teacher that I really like is that you can so we've been talking about Clary, and we've been talking about James Jessup, who came here and undoubtedly he did some funding that helped build the railroad. If it hadn't been for him, then what would have happened? Well, if you were studying American history, you'd be talking about the Reconstruction age, and you would be talking about carpetbaggers. And that was people who had money. Obviously, the South was bereft of much economic advantage. And so you'd have people from the North who had some money and came down here to invest. And I don't have my numbers, but at one time, let's say we became a city in 1870, what?
1870. 1870.
Okay, and then the next year
October 1870.
and the next year was when those two railroad lines crossed, and so it's no accident. It's almost like that they knew that we were going to have some grit and some clout, and if at one time, like, what would you say? What percentage of people you worked for the railroad, or you ran the railroad, or you invested in the railroad, or you provided goods and services? Because I said that, like, when the railroad would stop here to get water, and which was gassing up, I guess, and that people from Jessup would come out and they'd have baskets of food to give them, and water, and
hotels. We
and
had
then
lots of hotels.
At one time somebody had done a little thing about, and they said basically it's a railroad town, and they made a list, and I should. If I could memorize like you, I'd be doing better. But they were like, okay, well, they had this many churches and this many grocery stores, for lack of a better word, and this many bars.
Yeah.
And this many hotels. So basically, in the beginning, it's kind of like the Transcontinental Railroad, that progress
And
developed
everything
as
the city of Jessup, and also Scriven and Odom are also on the train line, but that's what gave the reason for the central business district to be right there. The railroad divides the city of Jessup into east and west. And on the right-hand side, and if you're standing at the depot, you're on the business side. If you're at the Heritage Center and the caboose, then you're on the residential side. And so most of the businesses grew up around, if you'll look at Walnut Street and look up and down, stand in the middle of Walnut when there are no cars coming. Don't go play Frogger or anything like that. But if you look up and down Walnut, it's a wide thoroughfare. It looks like a boulevard. But it is not the main street where the crossing is. That's Cherry Street. So that's where the Central Business District grew up, and with the founding fathers, with the Whaleys and the Wilkins but mostly the Whaleys. The Clary name doesn't come forward because the children were already born before, and their father got killed at the Battle of Seven Pines, and Willis Clary married Lucinda Lee. And he promised his friend Osgood Andrew Lee that he would take care of his family, and that's what he did. But he must have been quite the influential person, because he paid for the first city survey. His house, which is still standing, is City Lot Number 1. He convinced the Georgia legislature in 1872 to move the 3rd and 4th land districts of Abilene County into Wayne County, and that is when Scriven and part of Odom became part of Wayne County, was in 1872 with that move that Willis Clary he instigated. He also had influence with James R. Jessup, and that's a part of the naming of the city that I maintain, and I think I can convince some people, but there's no way to prove it.
There's nothing on him that I can find.
He's in the deed books. He had land transactions.
But if you tried to get him from, where did he come from and what was he doing there?
He was a Connecticut lawyer, and he
had stock.
He had stock in the Macon and Brunswick Railroad, which became a part of the East Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia
Well, this may not
And,
be any revelation to you, but I was talking to somebody at Train Day and I said, you see, I don't know. I made the comment. I said, I don't know why we weren't named Claryville because Clary was so influential. And they said, well, maybe Clary got the money from Jessup by promising to name the town for him.
I said he had money of his own, but who's to say no? I mean, we don't have any way of saying
I
one
would
way or
think
the
that
other.
Clary had the influence about
But
what the town would be named.
James R. Jessup, my mother did a study on those three. The three namesakes are Morris K. Jessup, James R. Jessup, and Thomas Sidney Jessup. And Thomas Sidney Jessup was a hero in the Indian Wars, and he tricked Osceola into surrendering under a flag of truce. And I don't think it was him. I don't know why he would have been important to a bunch of South Georgia Hicks in the 1870s. I don't know why. But he could have been because the Drawley Cemetery, there's somebody in the Drawley Cemetery at Williamsburg that served with General Jackson during that war. And so then Morris K. Jessup was like James R. Jessup. He was a robber
Investor.
baron,
Yeah, investor.
and he did have some limited contact with selling of stock and property, but not like James R. Jessup. James R. Jessup owned like 20 tracts of land inside the city. He owned some in the county. He actually, there's a land transaction in the deed book where he sold the land that's Jessup First Methodist to Miss Whaley, Miss Georgia Buena Vista Whaley.
I love that name.
I do. It's my favorite. I have to say it every
She
time
has
I
to
can.
work it in.
Yeah,
her
I
life.
do. She loves that
I see
name.
what time it is. How long did it take us to get to that?
I love that name. My name is Janet Gale. I mean, how plain can you be? But Georgia Buena
Well,
Vista,
Joyce.
she was quite the business lady. And but she well, let me tell you how much a business lady she was. She married the Whaley who came to Jessup. I believe he might have been a carpetbagger who came this way by way of Florida, but I think originally they were from Pennsylvania. But we'll have to get Courtney to straighten us out on that. But he died well before she did. She lived until 1955. But she was the president of the Merchants and Farmers Bank before she could vote. And she was quite the business lady, but she gave the land that Cracker Williams is on. She gave the land that the public library was on down Cherry Street. And she gave the land that Jessup First Methodist sat on.
Let me ask you something. So the first library wasn't over there at Cracker Williams?
It was. I'm talking about that. Yeah. But that was Whaley property.
Okay, yeah. And then she did the one down Cherry Street as well. Okay.
All right. Well, very good, Janet. Let's go ahead and take a break right now, and let's talk about the America 250 that we'd been talking about at the last historical meeting, trying to get ready for next year's 250th anniversary of America.
The Mad About Wayne podcast from the Wayne County Historical Society in Wayne County, Georgia, is brought to you by ProSonics Audio Engineering. From radio and podcast production to the recovery, restoration, and enhancement of tape recordings, video soundtracks, and phone recordings, to providing live sound services for corporate events, festivals, and houses of worship, ProSonics Audio Engineering is your go-to for all things audio. For more information, call or text 912-297-9911 or email prosonics@icloud.com. ProSonics, the science of sound.
Well, like I said, some of the stuff for the America 250, let's start off, I guess, with the Veterans Parade. This is going to be next month, right? We're getting ready for it. So on that, I think that's going to kick off the America 250 for Wayne County. I've seen some of the stuff where you sat the other day, but I haven't sat down and read through everything yet. So I know we're still in the early phases, but we got a lot of work to do.
We're going to do the Veterans Day Parade. We're going to assist with that. We're working on the Gold Star families, the families that had family members that were lost in the time of combat in a military action. And so we're working on getting contact with those people. The county commissioners have asked for the proclamation
Oh, yes.
be done in December. They think that'll be a good opportunity for that. And then from there, we've still got some more planning to do. But we know that we're doing the Veterans Day Parade November 8th, and we know we're going to do the proclamation, the county commissioner meeting the first Monday in December.
Another thing that will probably sit around, the interesting thing, and we can delve into this maybe at a different time, is that Wayne County was not a county during the Revolutionary War. There were undoubtedly people here and all, but we get a lot of notice because how many Revolutionary soldiers are buried here?
12 or 13.
Right. And the thing, including Richard Bennett, thank you.
Okay.
And
Well, those Bennett brothers.
there you go. But the thing is that they were given land for services. And so that is another thing besides the land lottery that encouraged. So I would think that the people who ended up here that had fought in the Revolution were not native to Wayne County, but had been somewhere, and then they got land. I know that Richard Bennett did. He actually had been over in Effingham County, and then he came to, if you look him up in the book, they say Appling County, but that's because Appling was part of Wayne, or Wayne was part of Appling.
Appling was part of Wayne.
Okay, and so then when they did another division of the county.
The original Appling line was Goose Creek.
And it went all the way to, where'd it go to?
The county line originally went from the Omaha to the St. Mary's, and none of that was a part of the original county. The original county was only 10 miles wide, and we don't even know where the original county seat, which was Tuckersville, we don't even know where that was. But it was somewhere on the Buffalo, where we really had Buffalo. But we had a female Revolutionary War. They don't know whether they exactly call her a soldier or if she was a provider. I don't know, but she has a DAL marker, and she's in the Whitaker Hill Cemetery. And I don't know how to pronounce Sibbiah. I call her Sibbiah.
That sounds reasonable.
Sibbiah Earl Blair is our female Revolutionary War patriot. And but we weren't. Georgia, Wayne County is the 10th largest county in the state now, but it's been through 5 county line changes. And what is Jessup was originally in Appling County, but it changed as it went. And that's the thing with Scriven and Odom. If you're doing a deed search trying to find out something about property before 1872, you're going to have to go to Appling County to their courthouse to find it out. But American 250 is going to be, I'm looking forward to it. I hope that we are able to have a grand 4th of July fireworks show in Scriven, but it's the semi-quincentennial.
How long did you practice that?
All over and over again.
I just like to say 250th.
And
Yeah.
so we have an official logo, and we hope that people will come out and celebrate America. And we're going to piggyback on some events. We're going to try to do some things with that are already being done, but we'll follow the pattern of National Black History Month or Women's History Month or whatever month. There's a month and a day for everything. Brown hair, brown-eyed people say. But anyway, we've got some more ideas of what to do with America 250.
And it's a great time to come out and join the association because, there's a place where people that are interested maybe in something specific, like, like colonial dress or, what were the battles fought here the significant battles fought in Georgia. People that are interested in a particular thing could just, come and help brainstorm some idea of how to promote that and make people aware. The meetings are held the second Thursday, and I forget a whole bunch of times.
Captain Joe's.
Captain Joe's, and it's you pay yourself. You can come for the meal at 6.
Correct.
Or 7 for
The meeting starts at 7.
meeting.
Dutch Street
And-
at 6.
And how much are the dues?
It's 20 for an individual, 30 for a family, and 50 for corporate, unless the corporate chooses to do more.
Okay.
Or donations are readily accepted.
And so we're in the investigatory stage as to how we can implement all of the great enthusiasm we have for 2025. But we're going to try to come back with a podcast once a month, and you'll be probably hearing from different people.
Yep.
Thank you
We
for
hope we're going to
tonight.
hear from different people so that we don't have to sit here and look at each other. But Wayne County has a lot of interesting history, and we're the county is now in the final stages of approving their comprehensive plan, which is a requirement of the state of Georgia and Department of Community Affairs. And inside the Wayne County Community Comprehensive Plan is support for a vigorous Wayne County Historical Society. So we appreciate anybody that wants to come and help us be vigorous. I'm getting too old for vigorous. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you. And like I said, I guess this concludes our podcast for today. We got to thank our sponsor, Mr. Mark Tootle from ProSonics Audio Engineering. So if you got any questions on that, you can reach Mark at 912-297-9911. Thank you guys for today, and I appreciate it. Looking forward to next month.
We hope you enjoyed today's Mad About Wayne podcast. For more information on the Wayne County, Georgia Historical Society, please visit our Facebook page. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you receive notifications when a new episode is released. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Remember, we're mad about Wayne.